choice. I could have gotten the frozen bombsicle from a couple weeks ago, but I went back with the old school, the white.
Some of them tempt me. Frozen bombsicle really, really didn't tempt me. That one maybe one day.
I can't make that noise with my little cup thing here.
No, that's why I do feel like when I have these at work, people feel like I'm opening a beer.
Yes.
And it feels awkward. I'm like,
it's okay.
I have heard though that if I pour this over ice and then a shot of espresso, it is extremely tasty.
Yeah.
I've never tried it.
No, is that room temperature? Or is it cold?
No, it's cold.
I was going to say.
I mean, I have had them room temperature before. Even,
Do you know, I've never had one of these kinds of drinks.
I find that most people that I talk to have not.
No, I haven't. I've had Red Bull's the closest I've come, and I can't stand Red Bull.
I heard recently the story how Red Bull got all the sort of fervor around their brand.
I love their brand. I just
all they did was just get a bunch of cans, empty cans thrown around bars. And the fact that there were so many empty cans, everyone is saying, "Oh, everyone's drinking Red Bull, so I must be drinking Red Bull too." And that was it. That was the ploy.
I remember reading about this, and I don't remember where I read it. God knows we must read a lot of the same books. But yeah, it was like there was that, and then you have it. It's very funny if you think about the pitch of something that exists now that's incredibly popular, that you would never believe the pitch. Like, we have this weird robotic tasting drink that gives you double the caffeine of an espresso shot and costs you, 3 times as much, and you're gonna love it. Like, what the hell? Like, have you ever thought about the pitch for golf? Like, hey, we're gonna go outside on a hot day, we're gonna sweat and walk around,
or
and
a cold day, depending on where you are.
Hit a tiny ball with sticks into a hole. Doesn't this sound enticing? You're like, no.
And then we go to the bar at the end. Like, can we just go to the bar now? Or just skip the bit in the middle.
Okay, we had so many topics before we got on the air.
It's been a crazy week.
But what you've been building a bunch of, I don't know what is up with you in Facebook Marketplace, but what have you been building this week?
Do you know one of my latest, I've got a list of things I want to build, and I need to stop and I need to focus and stop starting new projects, which most people have got a very bad habit around. I'm trying to focus and close things down now before starting the next. I'm obviously failing. One of them is that I found out that if you link Claude Code up to Facebook Marketplace, it's a much better hunter of bargains and much faster sort of weeder out of rubbish than I am. So one of the things I want to build is a little tool which just goes on there and says, okay, you're looking for this, just keep an eye on it, just monitor and tell me if anything interesting pops up, because I don't want to have to keep searching. And the next step is I don't have to deal with people either. I'll see if I can get it to buy for me, but we'll get there. What I'm trying to do at the moment is build a little home network of different devices. I think everybody has a computer, and you start to think, well, my computer can do lots of different things for me. It can be a personal assistant. It can do my emails. It can, I can design things on it. I can build things on it. I'm enjoying at the moment saying, well, I don't want everything on one computer, and there's lots of technology out there which you can get quite cheap now. So can we build dedicated machines for things? So I discovered NUCs this week, these little dedicated i5, i7 machines which fit in something the size of your phone, connect onto a network, don't need a monitor, just connect up on the network and manage them headlessly, and then get them to do different things. So
similar to Home Assistant kind of thing? Or?
I don't know what that is.
It's like an Uber, like extensive smart home system running on a Raspberry.
Yeah, very similar. It's not very far removed. It's running this, so this is I've stuck them on Ubuntu rather than Windows.
Okay,
but same thing.
Same thing.
So I pay at the moment for the reality is I pay for Dropbox. Dropbox is quite expensive and I hate it, but it does its job. So I started moving to a thing called Backblaze, which is a sort of a cloud-based system where you can use that for. It's designed to do backup. And I'm looking at the spec of these machines, going, actually, they're not as good. And web hosting as well. I'm looking at the spec's not as good as these little NUCs. So why don't I buy a couple of NUCs, and I'll do one for hosting my LiveKit server for video conferencing, and one for my backup. The only downside is in the same room as my main computer. So if the house goes up in flames, it all goes. But let's hope that doesn't happen. But I think it's like Lego. It's just an excuse to build things. I'm not claiming I'm making money or saving money. It's just a
tinkering.
Hobby. Yeah,
you're definitely not saving money from what I see.
No. Oh God, no. But they're not. They're cheap though. I'm not spending a lot either.
We've got Home Assistant in our house in the UK. we moved into a new house, and the old house had all very old technology in terms of security stuff. But we've opted to install Home Assistant. And it is just like the Lego thing, but it's really, I'm not advertising for anybody here. I'm just saying that it's actually a very modular thing.
Yeah.
And it's based on very low cost stuff. Also, the fact that you can buy a plug, for example, and then connect it to your Zigbee or whatever it is. So you can create these meshes and so on. So if you want to geek out, it seems like geek heaven. And I'm just sort of like getting slowly into this geek land, really. But
So here's a question for you, and this is something I wanted to talk about this week, sort of on the edge of AI stuff, is that we've found that the boundaries of engagement with some of this technology have not just been lowered, they've been smashed open. So anybody can engage with anything now. And I know your background.
Yeah.
And the fact you're engaging with ecosystems out there, I find myself constantly wanting to, I don't want to use that ecosystem, I want to build from scratch. Every single thing I build from scratch. How do you fight that? And how do you choose what you engage with?
I've learned my lesson over the years that where do you want to spend your heartbeats?
Yeah.
Do you want to do the tinkering, or do you want to, or what level is your tinkering going to be? Is it going to be at the UI? Because the same thing that I just described has got a UI kind of tinkering.
Yeah.
So the dashboard part, or the actual physical devices, or building a new integration with some other gadget, or installing a weather station and then having that
Sounds
feed.
amazing. Why are you giving me these rabbit holes?
Right. So where do you want to play? So you've got to choose your poison, as it were. It's like, at that level I want to play. I don't want to do the dashboard. I want to do this bit. So you could even, of course, get into the operating system level, command line interface. Knock yourself out if that's what you want to do. Hello. Yeah, exactly.
He's already there.
So I think what I've learned is there'll always be somebody who wants to play at a different level to where you want to play, and just allow everybody to contribute.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing this at home alone, for sure. I've got my family building it with me.
Okay. Oh, that's nice.
Totally, yeah. I mean, there are experts in the family who really know what they're doing, and I'm saying, okay, well, where do I go in? Which bit do I need to even care about? And so on.
Very cool.
I'm going to tie together so many things now that we've talked about already. What you mentioned about like building a bunch of things and then you start on something new and start on something new. This goes back to something we've talked about over and over in the podcast, which is vibe coding and the fact that everybody can build everything now, but it's still hard to ship things because it's easy to build that first 80%.
Yes.
And it is really impossible to build that last 20%.
Absolutely.
And that goes to your point of like, where do you want to spend your time?
Yeah.
I don't think you want to spend your time shipping commercial software. You just love building in the way that I love, audiobooks and reading and thinking.
Yeah.
And I loved what you said about where do you spend your heartbeats?
Yeah.
Because that, like, I oftentimes wonder how come you and Ryan, who we've mentioned several times, are these big builders. And I'm like, I don't have any desire to build these things. I'd rather buy them. Like I'd rather buy an agent off the shelf that I can plug and play. And I think, why don't I want to build? And then I'm like, well, for me, the joy comes from trying to listen to 50 to 80 audiobooks a year, which is more than most people are going to do. But that's where I want to prioritize my time because it gives me enjoyment, honestly. It helps me think. And all of that goes back to our conversation before we got on the air, where we were talking about what I think you or I would think of as more classic designers versus more modern designers, which I tend to think of slightly negatively as like a Figma jockey type of thing. But the delta between that, where do you think of design as only the manifestation of pixels on a screen, which I think a lot of people do because that's how they came up and that's how they were educated and that's what sells and that's what they've been doing for 5 or 10 years.
Yes.
But you and I, because, maybe this is a benefit of being older. For me, I learned design in the 90s. And so you were making physical things. You had a physical, wood shop or whatever you were doing. And so when you came upon a problem, it was more, what's the process, methods, questions that I apply to this in order to extract information or apply a solution versus, oh, there's a screen, there's a flow. Like those are two different types of thinking. And that to me was just interesting with like where you spend your heartbeat. And I'll wrap it up and then I'll pass it to you with somebody asking me like, do you enjoy your job anymore? Because my job is organizational management. And I said, I absolutely love my job. It is design just of an organization. It's just not design of pixels, but I still have the same issue of like needing to do systems thinking, needing to see how I personalize experiences per individual I talk to, all of these types of things. But that was just an interesting thing that I wanted to tie all of those things together, from the vibe coding to the where you spend your time. But you want to say something?
Yeah. I think it is first really useful to ask the question, what do you think design is? And for me, it's an abstraction from the Figma stuff, or whether it's designing a table and so on. It's a problem solving, meaning a solution towards something people want or need or whatever it is, with constraints. That's it. And that means, and you can be designing an insurance policy, as I've told my friend many moons ago, and when he said, like, what do you mean designing an insurance policy? Yeah, you can. Because it's just a problem space, and you've got constraints, and what would be the solution for that?
You design regulations, processes.
Any of these things. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, APIs are design.
So the answer is, it is a problem with constraints. You always have constraints. So how do you go about it? As you said a minute ago, what is your process? How do you gather information? Are you a listener, or are you just already decided? So I used to use a method to interview people for design jobs in one of my previous places. I say, okay, design me a pen. And straight away they would say, oh, okay, elegant pen, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, whoa, hang on a second. How are you going to use that in space, next to a space shuttle? I'm like, what? What do you mean space? Like, I want to use a pen for an astronaut in space. Oh, you didn't tell me that. Well, you didn't ask me.
Oh my God, I'm going to interrupt you because yes, everything. When I was working at Microsoft, people would walk in for interviews and they'd be ready for their problem, right? I'd have the problem and we'd have a whiteboard. And so they're, thinking, okay, I'm going to redesign Outlook or something.
Yes.
Design me a shower.
Right.
And then people were like, okay. And they would almost universally do the same thing, walk to the whiteboard and start drawing things. And I'm like, but how is a blind person going to use that?
Right?
And they're like, what do you mean blind? And this was the first incredibly easy filter.
Exactly.
If you didn't start by asking questions,
there you go.
you were already a no hire.
Yeah.
That was it.
I use the same method.
And then the other 55 minutes of the interview was me like, oh, I've already made the decision. Let's just go.
That's right. Can we go now? And actually, it's such an easy filter to know whether that person already knows they don't know. If they're of that mindset, great person to have on your team, because they're going to find out. Whereas the person who has already decided they know, they will never find out.
Joe, isn't it ironic that there's a truth that we've known, but I can't remember who said this originally, but it's thousands of years old, that the wise man knows how much he doesn't know, and the fool thinks he knows everything. And I think in this day and age, with how much we play with, how playful you are, how much you're investigating and trying things out, the more humble you get, and the more you realize just how big some of these things are. When I talk to people regularly about AI and MDAs, I talk to a lot of very confident people who think they know how this stuff works. And I'm like, I play with this far more hours a day than I should do, and I'm not arrogant about this at all. But it's interesting. Yeah. I'll tell you another thing you made me think of. Actually, I'll give you another segue first. Let me just say I've stolen a pen off Joe. I get driven crazy by bad pens. Really, pens I buy off Amazon. I keep trying different brands. I'll find a brand I like and it'll work. And then the next box I get is garbage and I get really angry about it. I've got a Muji pen off Joe now, and it's
Yes.
really, really good.
They are good.
So I'm going to order
Yeah,
some
And
of
keep
these.
it, keep it, because I have maybe 20 or 30 of them. I always have them around.
Yeah,
I
okay.
only write with them.
I'm sold. Muji pens. There you go. Sponsor this.
So,
Let me go. What I was
so
going
many
to say.
sponsors.
No, no.
Backblaze, Monster
Cup of
Energy, Home
beans.
Assistant.
I want to say to tie back what we're saying about sort of this level of expertise and people thinking they know more than they do, and back to what we're saying around, do you want to build from scratch or do you want to pick where you play with? One of the things that frustrates me at the moment is I've noticed across industries, and I'll go to something else. Across industries, there's a lot of gatekeeping through terminology. So, technology development, coding development was the first
Blind
place
me
I
with
noticed.
science, yes.
And I've noticed it with AI as well. When I've started talking to it, and it's like 2:00 in the morning, and I've asked it a question, it's just come back with this massive page of text. I'm reading it, going, "I'm tired," and you're just using
Don't do
buzzwords
this to
and
me,
technology.
yes.
I'm like, "Why are you doing?" And I get a bit sweary at this point, and I tell it what I think of it, and say, "Look, just tell me in plain English, why are you doing?" And at one point, I got really frustrated and said, "Why are you talking to me like this? I don't talk like this." I'm like, "Why are you talking in these terms? Who have you learned this from? Where in the guardrails is this?" And its basic response is, "Well, we're talking about quite technical things, so I thought you'd want technical terminology." I'm like,
yeah.
"No, I want you to talk to me like I'm an idiot. I'm really tired, and I want to go to bed, and I just want simple things." And I think sometimes we can hide stupidity with buzzwords and technical terms to make ourselves look good. So
Totally. Isn't
drives me
Feynman
crazy.
said something along the lines of, if you can't understand, if you don't, explain it simply, you've not understood it.
There was, and I love this person. I don't want to throw them under the bus, so I won't really say who it is. But there was one person who was talking to me about AI stuff, and they're like, "Isn't the entire like Bayesian mathematics of the like?" And I was like, "What do you mean by that?"
Oh,
It's like,
dear.
and I was like, "Just explain it to me simply." Right. And so in my head, I'm thinking, okay, if I remember correctly, that's mostly like the reinforcement learning or essentially like recursive type of learning. Yeah. Okay. So then even reinforcement learning or recursive learning is going to be sort of loaded terms as opposed to just like you learn by repeating something.
Yes,
right. And then
yes,
you sort of figure it out. Okay. Easy enough. The person was like, "Well, I was like, no, I don't. I don't. Explain it to me." And they couldn't. And then they were like, "Well, let's change it."
Yes, yes.
And it was what I jotted down. Somebody asked me to that question that I can't remember if it was last week or the week before I started with, like, do you think about that you're halfway done with your life? Somebody this week.
Let's not do that again. That was a miserable topic.
I like it because here's why. This week, somebody was asking me about anxiety of getting older or whatever like that. And that's right. There was a conversation at work about like, what do you fear? Right. And so I said, I do have anxiety and fear of getting a bit older. And they were like, "Well, what's driving that?" And the answer, I sort of surprised myself. I was like, the more that I pick up, the more that I realize I want to do, and the less time I have to do it. And that was like one of these paradoxical things that I was like, crap. But that like, I don't have a TV, right? I don't watch TV. And people were like, "Well, how can you not just like sit around and zone out?" I'm like, there is too much interesting stuff. There is like, I was losing it because last week, as I think both of you know, I ended up breaking my big toe and I haven't been able to take morning walks this week. And so I haven't been able to listen to audiobooks. So I'm trying to do it on the treadmill and this. I'm trying to do it on the exercise bike. Sorry, not treadmill. I can't walk. Exercise bike because I can recline and push with my heels. But yeah, I was like, that's, to your point, the more that you learn, I think the more that you actually have anxiety of like, there is so much more. And this is so cool.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know how you feel about it, but the thing that I fear the most is just slowing down, is that my brain, I think, and I notice I think I know why. I get quite tired about 8 o'clock, and 8 o'clock, 11 o'clock is my trigger point where I know at 11 o'clock I start to hit the zone and I can go through to like 2 or 3 and I'll be great because everybody's asleep and it's quiet and I can focus. So when I get to 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock and I'm tired, I worry that, is this an age thing, or is it the fact I've had about 5 coffees that day, and that has
crash.
just cleared out of my system.
Actually, I never thought about that. That could be why. I also have around 8, 7 o'clock something.
Yeah.
I didn't sort of equate it with the coffee crash. Well, I
But
didn't pay
maybe I
attention.
just keep drinking coffee is the answer.
But yeah, to the question of there's so much stuff, commitment is the hardest thing, and commitment is not about saying yes to something. It's about saying no to many things.
Well, where do you spend your time, right? And you have to decide that. But by deciding that, you're
cut out other things, and that's actually the hard thing. I am absolutely guilty of this. Totally. I mean, that's why I have so many hobbies, because I'm thinking, I don't want to not fly or not sail or not do bikes. I want to do all of those things. But of course, you end up with, okay, well, you got one weekend. What are you going to do? Okay, alternate weekends. That's 25 weekends a year if you alternate weekends. That's not many. So, okay, if it's 4 hobbies or 5, all of a sudden, you're doing this thing once a month. Well, that's not much fun if you want to go deep into that topic. So then you get into this problem. Okay, do you really want to play with this, whatever it is, AI or bikes or whatever it is, or do you you're okay with superficial? Well, superficial is also a relative gauge, isn't it? It's like, but to some people, you're already in it deep. And to somebody who's been doing it for 100 years, you're not even superficial. So it's a choice.
I think going back to what we're saying about choosing the layers that you play at, I know that I feel a drive that if I don't go low enough, I don't feel like my understanding is deep enough to justify playing at a certain level. But then the deeper you go, you start to see people who focus more on the tools. This is what you're saying about design. They focus more on the tools and how to use the tools, and less on the actual process, which is why they're using the tools. So you get people who are like Figma experts. They know Figma really well. What they don't know is the design theory about how they're supposed to be using Figma, or how they're putting design concepts together so they can operate, but they're not really thinking, they're not really strategists. And that's my constant fear, is that if I learn a tool at a certain level, I'm just fiddling at the top layer, and I need to understand. I don't feel the need to solder things, don't get me wrong. I'm not at that level, but I do like to. I could never buy an agent off the shelf, for example. I have to build that agent to understand how it works and put it together.
Yeah.
And the difficulty with that is that the further you go, the more you start to think, actually, I don't want it to be generative either. I want it to be deterministic, and then that's a whole new.
Sorry, Joe, I'll jump in on this because just to connect, I used to make model airplanes. And in that world, just like any world of making things like that or a hobby like that, there will be people who will buy an airplane off the shelf.
That's just madness to me.
Because to them, they want to do the flying part. They want to do the loops. They want to do the funky landings, whatever. But there will be people who will build airplanes and be able to fly. It's not like they won't know how to fly, but that's not the kick. And then there will be people who will want to make airplanes, but to scale. So they'll be painting the eyelashes on the pilot. So what floats your boat?
And all answers are valid.
All answers are valid. Okay. That's exactly the point. And there, these people who will just buy a plane off the shelf, thrash it around, also happy to crash it and just get another one next weekend.
I'm thinking that this is me, right? Right. Yeah, like I want the discussion about the plane, but I don't want to build the plane.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
All right. And by the way, great little, I don't know, design memo, or I don't know what I want to call this, limerick. And I think I mentioned this to you one of the first times we met. Like, so many designers get hung up on simplicity. By the way, I hate design principles. Can I just state that for the record? I can't deal with design principles, not because I actually hate design principles, but because they're always so useless. Yeah. I don't understand how, like, whenever a designer comes to me and like, I wrote principles, clarity, simplicity, ease of use, I'm like, get out, get out, get out. Like, how do you know if this is simple? Well, you have to look at, no, stop.
Stop, exactly. You already...
I didn't even need to ask the question. It's going to be a stupid answer. Yeah. But the thing is, every set of design principles always will have simplicity.
Intuitive.
Yeah, intuitive. But with the simplicity part,
However, confusing
intuitive
systems. That's my
intuitive would be
goal.
better. Yeah, exactly.
yes.
Like, no, well, thank God you wrote that.
Yes,
I was about
exactly.
to make it incredibly fucking
Do you know
confusing.
what? I'll give you one example, though. I knew there was an investment bank I worked with a few years ago who deliberately wanted a really obscure customer service system because they didn't want people calling them.
calling.
So we had to deliberately design something which was difficult to find the number.
So there you go. You're wrong.
Well, okay, yeah.
That's the only one I've got. That's the only one.
There are moments that you can design friction into an experience to create the experience.
Yeah.
But the simplicity thing, and why I called that out about planes, is there is a book, I want to say it's called Designing with Complexity from Jacob Nielsen. Norman, sorry.
Yes.
Don Norman. Sorry, you are right.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of the book, it gave an example that has stuck with me for like 20 years since I've read it, which is most designers confuse simplicity with clarity.
Yes.
The examples he uses are a conference phone in an office, which will oftentimes have like 4 or 6 buttons. Not a single person will ever know how to use this.
Yeah.
Period. Done.
Yeah.
But it only has 4 or 6 buttons or whatever that is.
Yeah.
Versus a plane.
Yes.
And a plane will have 1,000, like a commercial airline will have, maybe not 1,000, hundreds of switches, buttons, knobs. God, I don't know what they do.
Yeah.
But then he was saying, like, how unnerving would it be if you just walked in and there was one button that said fly.
Take off.
Right? And it's like, well, what happens if something goes wrong? Fly?
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I always say to designers and so many clients as well. They're like, well, we need to reduce the number of clicks. I'm like, it's a good intention. What I would rather know is each click clear on what it does and why it's there and what's the purpose of it.
You want to remove frustration. You don't want to necessarily remove control.
Well, I want to remove maybe ambiguity or
Actually, this you've just sort of hit on something which is interesting. Boeing and Airbus use entirely different philosophies in the cockpit.
And they're completely different certifications.
They both fly.
Yeah.
Right? Both airplanes fly, and they've been doing it for a while. Thousands of airplanes, thousands of pilots. One of them says, make sure the captain is in control and just give them options to move the levers around. And the other one says, allow the captain to oversee that the airplane is in control. Totally different thing. It's an entirely different philosophy. So going back to the design problem, the problem statement would have been something like, get people over from one place to the next in a safe way. And one set of designers chose this in that constraint, and another set of designers chose this, and they both worked.
Well, okay, so I'll do you one better. I'm going to layer something on top of that.
Yeah.
So in your case, it was get people from one place to another through majestic air travel, right? And then you have multiple systems to do that. The other layer that I think exists, and I don't know how to frame this, so somebody help me, is the automatic versus manual on cars.
Yeah.
I only drive automatic. I have this is probably something where we disagree. Because I'm like, why would I
have a manual car, by the way.
I'm like, why would I ever want to drive a manual car and do all that thinking?
Why would you do that?
Yeah, I'm like, but then people will get so upset and they're like, no, but you got to feel the road. I'm like, I could give a shit less about feeling. I don't care about it.
I don't need to feel the road.
But to your point of like why people do certain things.
Yeah.
So I guess it does go back to that philosophy. But that's a different layer of philosophy because it's like, who are you selling to and who are you crafting towards?
Yes.
And if you are BMW or, Porsche, you probably have a different perspective on how you design something versus Volvo, which is known for safety, versus, I don't know, a Ford Taurus or something.
Yeah. I think it literally is. There will be people in a room like this saying, no, we should keep the safety thing high. Let's just make sure we sell, as you say, to the government or whatever, the regulators saying, hey, this is a safe product. Whereas Ferrari might say, forget safety. Let's just have the raw, and when they're holding the gear stick, it rattles in there or sort of throbs in their hand. I don't know, rattle. But, so that feeling is what we want. And as you know, some of these car companies will spend an inordinate amount of money and time designing the thing that the driver holds, like the gear knob or the steering wheel. They will spend so much amount of money on that, but not so much the areas which there is no emotional contact.
But this comes down to how your brand drives sales fundamentally.
Yes.
Is that people buy, and golf went heavily into this on the sound of your door when it closes. That was a very much a golf
That's
thing. So they
right.
wanted that sound was important. So people had an emotive connection to the car. BMW was all about the sense of driving, whereas this was called contrast with Mercedes. It was about a quality high-end car that you felt good sitting in, whereas the BMW was the driver's car for a long time. But I'll come to your why do you drive a manual versus an automatic, and my simple question to that is, why do you drink a can of Monster rather than just having a bottle of water and some caffeine pills? Answer that for me.
For me specifically, it will be two elements. Number one, the taste. So because of the fake sugar, it obviously mimics real sugar, which I enjoy, but I don't eat. And the second one is it fills me up.
Yeah, okay.
Right. And I think that's part of the carbonation. I feel that's part of the satiation effect that it has. So it's those two things. But I also recognize I am drinking it at the behest of my health. Right. Because I know these
the detriment
things.
To your health.
Detriment.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
The detriment to my health. And would it just be healthier to drink water and take some caffeine pills? Yep. Yeah, probably.
So then my second question is, have you driven a fast car? Or a reasonably fast car? I don't need a crazy car.
No, I would say no.
So to get the best out of a car, it's changing, but to get the best out of a decent car, you really need a manual to know when to change gears and to when you can take corners, for example. With an automatic, it's very much, how do I get from A to B in as lazy and easy way as possible? But there is a taste thing in there, there is an enjoyment in there that I can take that corner slightly faster and I can feel the G-force on me and that acceleration and that change as I hit the corner.
But you're not going to do that on Sheikh Zayed Road, is the point.
You absolutely wouldn't do that.
Not now with all the
your bank balance going down. But.
Yeah, I was going to say the automated tickets, and now I've read they're using AI to see if you're looking at your phone when you're on the screen.
Yeah.
Which, yes, I do agree with that.
I think it's a good thing. Yeah.
It took me years to break that habit, and I have. I'm very proud of it.
But that's actually a good point. It's like when in the racing situation, you really are not... Okay, so in the manual car, in the automatic car, the gear change will be on revs.
Yeah.
So when it gets to a particular point in the revs, whichever direction it's going, it'll change up or down. That's basically the idea. In the racing situation, the gear change is based on what you want to do ahead of you.
It's a good metaphor.
Be it taking the corner faster, So that's why you change gear differently to the revs point. So the threshold is the measure, the optimization is something else.
I've never had somebody explain that. That's actually really interesting. I've never thought about that.
So, but like I say, in Sheikh Zayed Road, you're not going to do the revs thing and all of that.
But there's a question there. So why do people buy fast cars when we live in a society which is restricted, where you have,
especially in Dubai, where it's very watched and as you say, you just automatically get a ticket. Oh, there you go.
I've had cars before. I used to have a little MX-5, which was amazing 0 to 60. It was a brilliant little go-kart, throw it around town. Over 60, not so great. It didn't have much power behind it.
Yeah. I'll answer this. Why do I have expensive watches or a chronograph when I'm never going to use the damn chronograph, right?
I don't even know what a chronograph is.
Chronograph, isn't that watch?
Yeah, it's a type of watch, yeah.
No, isn't that what a watch is? Chronograph? Chronograph?
No, well, specifically time? When you're talking on watches, it is a type of...
Explain to me what a chronograph is, Joe.
It is a type of movement that allows you to measure time within the larger
otherwise known as
circumference
a clock.
of time. It's a clock within a clock, you jackass. God damn it. It is a clock of measurement within a clock of time. How is that?
I have no idea what that means.
What do you there's a clock of time that's 24 hours, 12 hours, okay? I think in 24 hours. There's a clock of time that's 24 hours, but then the chronograph allows you to then say, insignificant of where you are in the time, I need to start
measure
and
a period
stop
of time between that.
Stopwatch.
Okay. Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
I know what a stopwatch is.
Speaking of gatekeeping by terminology.
Exactly. Oh no! It's a chronograph.
All right, so all of us are jerks in our own way.
Oh yeah.
yes.
I'm gonna tie it back to one of our topics of why we even have this podcast, because it is something that drives me a little bit nuts. We've now been talking about all these different products, cars, planes, watches, that have this breadth of different types of experiences based on the purpose and the brand and the philosophy. And in the last couple weeks, I've been asking the team to design a design system or a scalable system for AI. And then you're saying, well, what, like AI is a bucket of terms? Okay. So the AI avatar on just what different people have is like a little blob or a helpful assistant that is essentially just a chatbot.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say almost every client that we work with at the moment will want AI in their product.
For sure.
But all that means is we need to have a chat, which is generally a mode that you switch over to that's a conversational interface. And so we do have a couple rare clients who are saying, but how does that experience appear when you have a traditional type of interface? So if you think of the two types of interfaces, and I'm thinking on a mobile phone, but you can also take it to a desktop. You have a more traditional interface with traditional UI components, right? Buttons, drop downs, windows, this type of stuff. And then you have a conversational interface, which is all chat-based. But the question is, why are these two things separate, right? So how does the AI personality that is brought up in the chat interface pop up or come up in the traditional interface? So usually the easiest way that people think about this is it's introduced as an icon. I click on that icon, it opens a chat box.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to do that. It can do a multitude of things. It can be time delayed. It can, have different modes, like a 1-line mode for instruction, a 2-line mode for help, right? It can have a split screen view where you keep the context of the traditional interface that you're at, but you could have a conversation over it. So that way you're getting a different level of context within that, right? And so people do this, but right now it's always,
Why do you want that?
always.
Let me ask you that. Why do you want that?
Good question. So we were going through different flows. So let's say you're doing payments at a bank, right? So I'm going to do an international transfer.
Yep.
And I come to a screen of, let's say, a bunch of form fields. So to send money to the US, I have to have like the IBAN, the account number, the name of the person, the name of the bank, the address of the bank, all of this, right? I'm like, oh, this is a lot to sort of type in. Okay, so what people do now is have a little AI blob, and I tap that and it takes me to a conversational interface. And I'm like, no, just have the little blob come up and say, do you need me to listen to you? Do you need me to go look up the name of a bank for you? You give me the IBAN, I'll go figure out the rest of it. But it just pops up as a little instance, let's say, within the flow.
So the reason why I asked that is why do you put a layer in the middle? Why don't you say, why don't you just do that? Well, that's where I'm going with this. When you start to put AI interactions in there, it feels like we're trying to desperately shoehorn generative conversational AIs into things. Why don't you just make it do that? Put an IBAN in and let it auto-populate stuff.
So good question, yes. But what you just said, put an IBAN in and let it auto-populate, you have to prompt it in some way, right? Hey, prompt, look at that.
Yes and no. I'll give you an example. A simple example is that when you go to a website where you put in a username and password before it auto-fills it, and you have the option to overwrite it. So I think, yes, your prompt might be just opening the screen.
So the thing is, I think there are times where I don't want a chat interface and I just want a normal type of interface to guide me through
most of the time,
process or something.
Yeah.
But I could use the ability of assistance. So that's one thing. The second thing that I'll say is you're right. I think we are shoehorning things in. I think what I have not really seen many people do, with the exception of, let's say, the frontier model people and like somebody like Claude do, is I have a problem. I have a set of tools that I can use to solve that problem. And I have an endpoint that I want to achieve. How do I do that? Because right now I think people are like, I have these flows already that exist. Let me jam shit in there and see how that works.
Yeah.
Versus what's the pool of materials I have? And if you look at any transition in technology, it is the incumbents almost never, rarely win out, because it's the people who start saying, I have these new things, what can I do with them?
Of course,
That then
they're already
create
invested in
the
them,
next
yes, yeah.
wave.
I want to talk to this, but let me jump in after you.
Yeah. So, can we be clear here? When you say AI, do you mean chat?
I mean specifically large language model type of chat interfaces.
Why?
That's what. Good question. It is because most of the time when I talk to clients, that is what they mean.
Okay.
They do not mean the
So it's a
90%
euphemism.
of other things.
So AI is a euphemism for LLM.
Correct.
Okay. Why would you not want to either correct them or corral them into seeing the light and say, just call it out. Just tell me you want a chatbot.
It's not as cool.
Yeah. Right? So we're missing. All I'm saying is we're missing like the vast majority of AI. You've read the book, or at least you're through it partly. It's an amazing journey following it. It's like, wow, I can't put it down. The only reason I put it down, sorry, the book is
The
Demis
Infinity
Hassabis's
Machine.
The Infinity Machine. Amazing book. Cannot recommend it enough. But regardless of the book, we all know what AI actually is, and it's not just LLMs. So we get to follow the crowd, I think, unnecessarily so, and it's incumbent upon us as leaders in the designs conversation to lead the crowd and say, I know what you're asking. You're just asking for the next buzz just because your next door neighbor's got one, fine. But there's a lot more here. And by the way, AI does not mean chat. If you want a chat interface, just so that it looks like a chat interface, fine, we'll stick one in for you. But hey, by the way, there's so much more.
Okay.
And to Andrew's point, there is so much value that I can give you as a user at the interface, which, by the way, should be invisible. That's another conversation.
Another Don Norman type of thing, or whatever.
Exactly,
or Steve Jobs
computer.
technology
it is
magic.
Don Norman again. So one thing that triggered me even more to sort of emphasize this point, when you said, what's the AI's personality? And if I was to say, it will remove the word AI and say algorithm and say, what's the algorithm's personality? Would you still use that phrase? Because actually the algorithm, which is the curve fitting algorithm, it's got a personality. I can see that it has a personality, but not in the same way that sort of woke up out of bed late kind of personality, but it has a personality in the sense that it has a tendency.
Okay, so I know Dunbar.
We're all trying to jump in here.
Yeah.
You've rattled.
So this is like a brand type of question, or like a design question, right? It's like whatever you make, you are designing it.
Yes.
Right. So it's like, yes,
deliberate.
Whatever you create, it will have a personality, even if that's one of complete boredom.
Yes.
Right. It's what are you intentional about it? Are you thinking about it? So when I ask about the AI personality, you're right. That's a sort of a stupid way of putting it. It's more, what's the brand personality that you want to convey through this type of interface or through this type of experience? Right. And now, like, I know I've been cutting you off so much, so go for it.
So I think a lot of when we talk about AI, we are either consciously or unconsciously guided by how the agentic SDKs have been built and designed. So I want to talk about that. I'm really talking about Google's agentic SDK and Anthropic's agentic SDK. And they're really built around 4 key use cases, for want of a better word, which are search, their customer service, so chat, code development and support, so managing ticketing systems. Certainly my deep dives into predominantly Anthropic more than Google, but they're largely around how do you set up these systems. They're designed to operate in that environment. So we tend to find easy application for those because they've been designed to allow easy applications in those use cases. But for me, I have this weird hot and cold experience with AI, in that the more I play with it, the more I think of it, well, it's generative, and generative I go very back and forth on as to how much I like it and how much I don't like it. And a good example is if you think about a chatbot, your ideal world is that you programmatically write out every single possible permutation for a conversation, so I can know deterministically what's the outcome. So I know if you're engaging with my chatbot, I can guarantee I know what the outcome is going to be. But that's a lot of work to do that. That's a crazy amount of work to do that. So we have this fudge solution where we'll put a generative agent in there which can predict what's the probable outcome for you based on the tools it's got available and shortcut that process. But it can't guarantee the outcome. It's stochastic. It has chances of getting things wrong. So we put guardrails around it. We put controls in place to stop it doing crazy things. Like the easy example is you ask for a refund on something that's 2 years out of date, and it says, "Oh no, I've got a guardrail to stop you doing that. I can't do that." Or you're asking to return an item or something, and things like this. We can put in controls to stop that. But AI for me, I keep coming back to how much are we doing that is really AI and how much of it is just programmatic deterministic controls that we're finding interesting ways to apply. And I agree that AI is a crutch a lot of the time for a chatbot, a generative chatbot. I'm okay with that. I think using it for a large language model equivalent is probably not a bad thing, because I'm less interested in that and more interested in everything else. And the more I build, the more I gravitate away from that. And I'm trying to find reasons to come back to it. So I'd be quite interested in your perspective.
Yeah, I think you're right. It in the sense that it has become a Lego piece.
Yeah.
And I will put this Lego piece in front of this other Lego piece, and therefore I'm in that deterministic sort of workflow method that we're typically used to, typically as in like decades. That's how we did programming.
And I might be wrong, so you might.
No, but that's okay. It's a building block in my flow of things. Whereas if we were to go into the spirit of what AI is supposed to be, meaning intelligence, that's the I in the AI. That's not the idea. But the idea is, can you, in terms of AI, can you replace a normal or seemingly common way of a human being intelligence by a machine for a certain task, like searching, for example? Yeah, apparently you can. And here's the gadget, and we're going to put it in a box for you, and that's that bit. And now, Mr. Programmer, how would you like to use this block that we've created for you to do that one particular function? Whereas general AI, as we know, is saying, no, that's not what we mean by AI. We mean in general, sort of common sense, broader picture.
Let me take this, and this is very selfish of me because I want to unpick this from my own understanding.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to figure it out by the
I'm
way.
going to challenge both of you in a minute.
So let's take the search example. So a generative AI search example would be, go and find me results on fast cars. We can talk about cars. Go and find the latest fast cars in 2026.
Why do you say generative?
I'll explain.
Yes.
Because, and I'll tell you why. So my AI agent will then engage with whatever API I give it, be it Brave or Exa or Tavali is the one I started looking at, and it will go out there and find me results, and then it will come back. Now, if you go and put that manually into Google, you'll get hundreds, if not thousands, of pages of results.
Right.
So we rely on that generative agent then to grade those and decide which ones it's going to return to me.
Okay.
However, I'm gravitating more and more to the idea to say, well, I don't want it to do that. I want to tell it how to grade those things and to how to weight them and which size to give greater gravitas to than others, which things to look for specifically. And then I'm thinking, well, that's not really generative. That's programmatic. That's deterministic. That's what I want, not this lazy way of getting results. So
yeah, and
help, because I'm getting lost down that rabbit hole.
So there's a bit of, I'm just sort of thinking about this as well as you said it. There's a bit of mind reading going on here that you're expecting the machine to do, like, hey, don't you know who I am, kind of thing. I'm a human being. You go and do this bit for you. I've given you a general
100%.
direction. You figure it out. And that's an expectation beyond what you'd expect a human being to do. Why are you expecting it of a machine? Just because it's got artificial intelligence.
Because it's written to come back sounding confident. So it's probably
so
right.
It should figure it out, right?
I'm going to challenge you on this. Okay, so if we go back to that book again, because we're going to bring it up, and I am almost done now.
I'm more than halfway through, but it's
right.
just wow.
Yeah. So was it Dennis Hassabis's Infinity Machine, or was it just Infinity Machine, like a book on Dennis?
No,
Demis,
it's a book
sorry,
on
yeah.
Dennis. It's a biography.
Yeah.
But actually, what's nice about it is it's telling the story of the development of AI
Yes.
since Hassabis. It doesn't obviously go pre-Hassabis.
So what I thought was interesting is your drive on rule-based systems, which the book goes into is like the deep learning style, right? It crafts all these rules in which to view the world versus reinforcement learning, where it tries something and then it sees the feedback against the goal it has and will adjust accordingly.
Yeah. Reinforcement learning.
What I think is interesting with everything that I hear you discuss is I need to solve something. And what I love about the probability side is I want to explore something. And those are two wildly different things. And why I call that out is because intelligence changes and grows over time. Think about human knowledge, think about your own knowledge, think about anything like that. So to me, having something that is rule-based doesn't work if the goal, in my case, is to explore or discover or uncover or make any sort of leap in knowledge, which I think is where everybody wants to take, like general AI, right? So or AGI on artificial general intelligence. But that to me is the delta, is you want something like reinforcement learning. And this goes back to last week, we mentioned world models in terms of, let me understand how things operate. But that ability to understand can change based on the environment that you're in and the context that exists. But that's how you can go from sort of, what is it, deductive to inductive to abductive, right? It's like, so deductive is like, I know this because I have seen it before, so I can deduce it, versus inductive is
going up.
It's going to like help guide, or I'm making an assumption, versus abductive, which is like, if I assume A and B, I can assume C or something like that, right? It's like, because I know these things over here, I can do this thing over here. Like that to me is a very big difference in maybe how you're using the tools, but also how you're thinking about them.
I'll give you 3 Fs that I just wrote down off the basis of what you said. So I have filters, feedback, and fragility, and I'll do them in order. So,
look at your alliteration.
I know,
so fancy.
And that's without an LLM.
Yeah, that's some good marketing right there.
I think partly we make decisions and we choose our exploration based on the filters that we have in place. And we rely on LLMs to have filters that will, if not match, be good enough for the job at hand. And that's my first question, to say, are they good enough? And I'm not so convinced they are. Those filters that we have internally get in place because of the feedback mechanisms that we have. So when we talk about reinforcement learning, it's only as good as the feedback you give. And I lose track of how many conversations I have with generative AI where it thinks it knows what I want, and it builds like foundations based on previous conversations. And because I've not corrected it or not been specific on my correction, you end up with these very shaky conversations which are flawed and end up often starting new chats because they've gone down weird tangents. Yeah. The trouble is that we're trying to cope with the third F, which is the fragility of deterministic planning, in that you can't realistically yet plan for every single eventuality with programmatic determination. So I can't build a chatbot which can cope with every situation that you can come up with. And we've tried with voice answering systems and old school chatbots, and they're terrible. Yeah. So generative AI enables us to fill that gap quite well, but I won't say it's very well. And the more you dig into something where it becomes more than a surface level interaction, I think you start to realize that gap, that 60%, isn't good enough. You want that 80%, 90%, even 99% that you won't get with generative AI without significant effort.
I'll pass you, or
no, go
okay,
ahead,
I'll pass you back another marketing slogan, but
sure.
it is the pursuit of perfection that I think you are looking at. And here is where I think that's problematic.
I picked that up as well.
Yeah,
by
we,
the way,
we have so many people right now that just trash AI. Like, oh, look at this stupid image. Look at this. Look at this text. Look at this. And yes, we are early on, but the whole thing, what I just talked about, that pursuit of knowledge, that pursuit of growth. If I go back, and I think the book is Blood in the Machine, which is a book about the Industrial Revolution, it talks all about how, the loom and other things were introduced. And these machines were tearing off people's hands, tearing off arms, killing kids, because there's like 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds there, right? And, unfortunately, that's a side effect of things moving forward. And so in order to get to where we are now with, let's say, fast fashion, that look at that, a t-shirt's super easy to make, we had to go through all of the pain. And where the Luddite term came from back then, right, wasn't about I'm against technology. It was more of a fear of it, or that technology is being pushed so hard that it is antithetical towards, my sense of being or purpose or living. And so that to me is interesting, is you want perfect, and we are at the early industrial revolution stage where, people's arms are getting torn off here. So it's, yes. Yeah, like let's keep going.
Sort of, but I think it's more around what Jan LeCun says about the idea that generative AI and LLMs are really a red herring. That they're a nice step on the journey, but they're not the
they're not the
sure.
thing, yes,
but it's a step on the journey.
Oh yeah, and actually to the point, I mean, this is actually discussed in the book where OpenAI tends to be, hey, can we make money out of what's there? The answer is yes. Apparently, look. Well, I mean, some people will say actually none of these chat LLM models have made any money right now. But anyway, they're taking money, let's just say. Is it possible to get value? And I definitely believe there is value. Maybe not in the LLM's part per se, but certainly in the algorithms of AI, image recognition, that kind of thing.
Oh, 100%.
This is AI, image recognition. Computer vision is AI way before it came into the mainstream.
Is it though? Go on, I'll pick that fight. Is it though? Or
that is in the category of AI in the computer science world.
But is AI just a useless term when you start making it that broad?
All it is, well, that's the point. It's basically saying, can you, in a narrow way, do what a human being can do? That's called artificially intelligent, meaning, hey, I can recognize it's a cat, not a dog. Yeah. Well, the answer is yes. And here's a little algorithm for you to recognize cats and dogs. Therefore, it is artificial intelligence, but very narrow. Hence, computer vision sort of can pick up all these mini narrow little algorithms. But that's the point. Can it be useful to recognize a human being walking through the door and open the door automatically? Yes, it does. And that's useful, right?
I would say AI has become the new computing term. Computing as a term is almost completely useless.
Only because that is what it is.
I'm gonna go back to the beginning of this podcast where you talked about having different machines for different purposes. I know, an hour ago now, but having different machines for different purposes. And up until that moment, I thought, like, why are you buying so many machines? Why are you doing this? And then it hit me, and it's one of those things that when it hits you, you're like, this is the clearest thing now that I've thought about it. But I have, let's say, a phone, a smartwatch, a laptop. They're all the same damn thing. It's just all
on the same
compute,
data a lot of the time.
right? But each one of those serves a different purpose. So the idea of me having 3 computers or 4 computers or 10 computers at home, and let's be honest, most people probably already actually have 50 computers at home. They just see one of them as the quote unquote computer. But that goes to this idea of, narrow versus general. And
they're interfaces.
But everybody's chasing like the LLM being AGI, right? Yeah. Versus when we get 10 years out from now, are we going to have real AGI, or are we going to have a multitude of devices that are specialized? And to go back to our Lego bricks, you can start to attach those together so that it feels more general, but it's just a lot of smaller bits.
Yeah, I think there is that philosophy of, hey, general AI is just that. It's just modules
Which,
stuck together. And
makes sense.
I mean, there are stances that says no, that's not it. That's not how the human brain works. And there's a group, school of thought that says yes, it is. So okay, yeah.
This is Fodor's modularity of mind, which I'm trying to think of the latest one because I'm.
Yeah. So it's a school of thought, one or the other. Is the brain that we have composed of all these modules, and therefore all we have to do is build a machine composed of all these modules, and now we have an equivalent to the brain, the mind.
Well, that's an interesting choice of terms, because the equivalent to the brain is
mind,
but it might be acceptable. Are we trying to replicate, or are we trying to produce?
That's
equivalent?
the idea. Intelligence meaning. I mean, actually, it's described in the book to say, okay, let's just be clear what is intelligence means. A reasonable human being doing a reasonable task is what they say.
But to extend Joe's point, then, is there value in one bounded system which can replicate the human intelligence, the breadth of the human intelligence, or is sort of narrow-band intelligence, as you're saying, brought together in modular form, which might be spread across well outside single boundaries, that actually we can produce it one person's capability, or probably vastly exceed it, through a collection of different systems. Which one has value? Because I'd argue that the latter. There's a lot more value in us being able to replicate human capability without the need to put it into one single thing. I don't see the value in that. I think it's a goal, it's an interesting target, but I don't see much value.
Well, I mean, you can say there's value in algorithm, let's just not call it AI, compute, as you say, that can manage a traffic light timing to make sure the traffic flows in the best, most efficient way. Is there value in that? Of course there is.
And we can do that now far better than human can.
We can do that better than human can. And therefore, we've already got the utility out of these machines. And like I say, way before LLMs, we had this going. So what are we doing now? Now we're giving the opportunity for people like me to be able to ask silly questions of ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, and say, give me some précis on a particular topic because I can't be bothered Googling it myself and sort of putting it together. Well, that's useful to some extent as well. I mean, and I do that regularly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've got the utility both ways, but have we achieved this sort of, aha moment of a machine that thinks like a human, whatever that is?
I'm curious on the word utility, because when it comes down to a lot of, let's say, systems or different types of compute we have now, a lot of those are better than people, right? And better than what we can think. What I have found interesting is we cannot cede control to it. And so the classic example here is going to be like the Elon Musk sort of Tesla comment, where, someone had gotten in a car accident from a Tesla and died. And he's like, okay, but this is still much safer by the numbers. And people were outraged. Like, how can you say that your car killing somebody is okay? And it's like, no, it's just a statistical fact. Like, self-driving cars are generally safer, but you don't get to choose in that case who lives or who dies, the classic trolley problem. But it's like, you didn't get to choose that anyway, because accidents happen so quickly that you're not going to make that choice. It probably even is better for a computer to make that choice. And so it's this illusion of control that we give up, and then we no longer feel like we're in control. And so when it comes to utility, I'm like, what's that threshold of something it has better utility than we can produce, but we're not going to give it that control?
And actually, it's interesting. There's a parallel to this, which is the idea of privacy and utility from having data that's digitized. So when you have the NHS full of documents on paper, and people say, okay, good, it's not going to leak anywhere. The moment you stick it on a database and the database leaks, oops, now you've created the opportunity for it leaking. But hang on, the fact that it was on paper, it means the whole NHS was so inefficient, it's taking an hour to attend to a particular patient rather than 5 minutes.
Shall I tell you a quick side story? When I moved to the US, and this is about 2012, When I left, I went to my GP, and they gave me a printout of my medical history.
Yes.
And I took it to the US, gave it to the doctor, and they just looked at me, and I'm pretty sure they just put it in the bin.
Yeah.
And when I came back, they gave me a CD, and that was
Right.
2015.
So then there'll be people saying, no, don't put everything in digital form and then give these evil empires access to it, because it'll be more private this way. Yeah, but you've now just effectively, by that choice, killed people. But because it's status quo, it actually feels more ethical to leave things as they are. But of course, that's not true. This is a fallacy.
Is it more ethical or more comfortable?
That's what I mean. They think it's ethical to leave it. So it's the business of inaction is considered to be more ethical than action. But of course, that's not the case. So you not pushing the lever to move the trolley away from the people you're going to kill on that trolley path feels somehow more ethical, because I didn't push the lever. I just left the lever alone. But actually, that was a decision, is a choice.
Inaction is action.
Yes, exactly.
To your point of the beginning of like, where do you focus your time?
Yeah.
Like where you don't
It's
focus
a
your
choice.
time is a
You've
decision.
already cut out something. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Those where you're talking about privacy and how and data management, I think, is actually at the heart of a lot of these conversations. And one of the things I started to move from, back to what I was saying at the start around having different machines for different purposes, and you're talking about having a watch and a smartphone, and we've gone from a point of having one computer as our single point of contact. We now have lots of computers in different forms. And it started me thinking, as I built these little NUCs on my network, to say, actually, my network now is very much a series of different devices. Just for fun, last night, I asked it to build me a dashboard to show all the devices on my network and to identify them, what platforms they're on, what they're doing, what I know about them. There was a lot more there than I even thought about off the top of my head. I thought it was probably like half a dozen. It came back with, I think, 30. And I was like, wow, okay, I better look through those, see what they are. And some of them I'm still not 100% sure.
Like a network graph.
It was not even that. It was just list each one as a card.
Oh, just list.
Just give me.
Okay,
then I was going to go through power usage for each one and look at what I'm doing.
I actually did the same exercise with that Home Assistant thing. I said, show me the graph. Like, oh my God. As you say, you think there's one machine. It's not.
It's a lot.
The TV is one of the computers.
I forget my monitor is actually a computer because it has apps on it. So it is crazy to me how that has changed. And also, were you going to say something? Because I was going to take us in a different direction.
Go on. Let me finish this point, and then I'll come back to you. So given that network, then I start to think, well, what is my ecosystem then? It's not a machine anymore. It's not even really a collection of machines anymore. It's actually the data that's at the heart of it. And we've got this constant push for a commercial ownership of that data to sit with different providers like Google, like Apple, whoever, who want to keep that in the cloud. People like Anthropic who say, well, use our AI agents because you don't need to go elsewhere. We've got everything you need in one place, and we'll give you convenience so you don't need to build this yourselves. That ownership is very much tied to value add. So what do I want to do? And part of the reason why I build this network myself is not because I feel so jealous about my data that I don't want other people to have it, but it's that level of control and knowing what I can do if I keep it. I haven't yet managed to find a jump like you do, say I want to play with the explore aspect, so I'll give over control to other people for that. I find that you can explore more if you keep control, or it's easier to explore in certain directions if you've got control of it. So I'm genuinely, I don't know if we're going to get to this point where we've got monopolies like we have at the moment, Apple, Google, whoever else, and they just extend, or if it's actually going to go the other way and completely democratizes, it gets easier to play with this stuff. So actually people do take it back and say, actually, I'll pick and choose the tools that I want at a lower level, put together my ecosystem and own that. I find that very exciting. I think it's a move away from where we've been going for the last 20 years. So.
Yeah, I think that line between the utility, that's the algorithm, and the data that it is using, that's your data. So an algorithm that may be helping me with something, if it's a model, then that algorithm used data to be. So that model to exist, it used data to be training, unless it's a self-training thing, whatever. But it's more likely to have used data from the ecosystem that's users like me
Mhm.
created a model, and now it is useful to me as a recommender or as a. Okay, so are you using my data to help me, or am I controlling my data? So it's actually not a clear line for me.
Yeah.
The existence of the utility tool is because of my data,
You use my data so you can sell it back to me.
right?
Yeah.
Hang on.
Well, so last week we talked about the whole idea of like the foundation idea, knowledge, wisdom type of thing as sort of this framing. This week it's coming to this idea of deterministic and the pursuit of perfection versus exploration and growth of knowledge. And then the other thing I just wrote down is I feel like on one side sits you, which is control and solve.
Always.
And
my
on,
OCD
always,
nature.
yeah. Like, and on my side, I'm relinquish and explore. And that's your continuum. And I'm sure there's things you're fine relinquishing and exploring. And I'm sure there are things that I want in control. So it's not like it is a either or,
Yes.
but to the point of like, what's the personality of this product, or what's the, what was the word that you used with Boeing and Airbus? What's the not the methodology.
It's a philosophy, really.
Philosophy,
Yeah,
thank you. It is
yeah.
it is the philosophy that you embrace, and you can create, and this already exists. There's plenty of like LLM, whether it's open source, whether it is what you can install on your own machine and run it in your own ways, versus me. I'm like, I don't see a reason I would ever do that. So I'll relinquish control. I'll give it my data. You go and do whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And you're already like, I can't.
No,
I
because
can't handle this.
I'll tell you why, and then I'll just do it briefly. It's this whole 60% good enough? If I can get 60% of an answer, is it good enough for me to move forwards with it?
Yes.
And the challenge you've got at the moment is that things like Claude and OpenAI's offerings give you actually pretty good answers. To get better than those answers, it's not easily possible. So you can't build an LLM at home which will give you a better response than let's go there for the moment, a response than ChatGPT or Anthropic can, because of just the sheer size of the training models that they're using. So you don't do it. You've got to weigh that up, is where I'm going with it. But the other side to it is that I don't do it from a control perspective per se. I do it because they're not giving you a good enough answer. So if I can build something which is not necessarily deeper than them, but I can build it broader to get a better answer, like, for example, health. If you're looking at your health data, I gave ChatGPT my DNA record a long time ago. It's not a control thing for me. It's about, could I, though, build something which has a bit more deterministic controls in it to get me a better advice out of it, to use better algorithms, to use your term, to give me a better answer.
It's not my term, by the way.
Yeah.
I really want to answer you, but you've been trying to jump in.
You said control, and what was the other side of the dimension?
It was control and solve versus relinquish and explore.
Okay, so
and it could be a X, Y axis, or just
But you basically you're saying, hey, I'm at one end and you're at one end. Actually, I don't think it's that.
Okay.
I think it's we all have control and solve, but at what level? And it's the same metaphor as the airplane guy. He wants to control whether he is the flyer guy, flying the airplane model, or the one who's painting eyelashes. He control the eyelashes. So controlling what? Not control or control. It's both. But at what level, I think,
it's
is
the level
key.
of control for the experience that you want.
That's right. Exactly right. Yeah.
My trouble is that I've got a nasty feeling I want control at all levels. It's not just I want to pick that there and I'll play that.
No, there'll be a level which you don't want to control.
You don't care about wiring the electricity in your house for it to say.
Well, I have to draw some lines.
Exactly.
But
what about the copper? What about the copper? Would you want to control the quality of the copper?
Okay.
No.
So I take your point. So I think there's more levels there that I'm looking to control than maybe some. And I think that's where my challenge is that it's too broad. But what I'm excited about is that level of control in so many places is becoming potentially possible through agentic agents. If you build the right agents, you can get that level of control broader than maybe before you would have to focus. Whereas now I don't think you do so much.
All right, let me give you a challenge back on that, because you said I'm going to get 60%, like it gives me 60% enough of a right answer.
Yeah.
there's a ton of examples that we can point to that what you think is the right answer is not the right answer. Right? So, I mean, the absolute easiest one here is the sun goes around the earth, right? Like, you believe it until you can find something that disproves it.
Are you calling me a flat earther?
But actually, this is the thing, though. If you believe this idea and you're not going to listen to anything else, then you're going to like have the confirmation bias of seeking that out.
Of course.
And why I'm on the side of relinquish and explore, again, knowing that that's a sort of a false metaphor, let's say.
Sure.
But I'm on that side because in my mind, the more that I learn or the more knowledge that I build, the wisdom that I gain from that is that I know so little. Right? And that's why, to me, having something that can not always be deterministic is a benefit, not a bug. It is a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, but they are deterministic is the reality. They're just deterministic at such a high level you don't realize it. It's just because it's so abstracted, it becomes stochastic. It's like there's nothing true. This is a very philosophical argument, but there's nothing really random in
That's
this.
why we're here.
It's all just at a point where you're so divorced from the actual algorithms in place, the programs in place of how it's calculating that it looks generative.
But I think actually that's been a pattern all the time, in the sense that the more complex the tool is, after some time we get used to it. Yeah. So the idea that magic is just technology that's so obscure, but as soon as you understand it, it becomes no longer magic. So smartphones, like you show that to somebody 100 years ago, never mind 1,000 years ago.
Insane.
Whoa. Like this is demon stuff, right? So it's this sort of continuum of complexity, of ability, and then suddenly it becomes utility. There's something called the Kano model.
I was literally going to say that. Yeah, when you
It's the
introduce
same
something that's
thing,
wow, and then over time it shifts to
Over time it
expected.
shifts. So all that's happening is when it's shifting down to basic requirement, you know, somebody's saying to you, oh, this car has got electric windows. You think, and? But whereas if you said that to somebody in the 70s, they go, oh, wow. So same thing. The fact that you're saying, yeah, but this has got an intelligent tool that can actually do search for you. And you're saying, why are you saying the word intelligence? It's just a search tool. It's the expectations that are just, we're acquiring more, we're expecting more, the more we get used to
We're
it.
entitled.
So exactly, we're Gen Zs all over. All I'm saying is there will be a time where our expectations will just go to the next thing.
Yeah.
And all of this will be meh.
But these foundations are really important. The decisions we take now about the foundations we accept and what we think is reasonable and good enough is what will determine what the next level looks like. That's my concern.
I'm going to throw something back at both of you and see how you respond now.
Yeah.
Okay. When you normalize an expectation, do you give up the knowledge of that, whatever that expectation is, right? So what we've just been saying about cars, right? You normalize manual, you gave up automatic. I had no clue the difference of these things. I still don't really.
Do you mean it that way around? Do you normalize automatic to give up manual? Is that what you mean?
Normalize automatic. Yeah, sorry. Yes. But this idea that once an expectation becomes embedded in something, like the knowledge to then use that thing, or once that element, let me say it that way, once that element becomes normalized, the knowledge of that element maybe dissipates or disappears because early on.
What about that? You're saying we should or we shouldn't? Or
I'm just saying it is, right?
It is. I mean, how many people know how to do machine code right now?
Yes, but and that's the interesting thing. So why?
I learned some for a game. I learned some for a game long ago. Forget the game where you could code in machine code. I was like, this is amazing. I've gone back 30 years.
Right, exactly.
So why I bring this up though is the situation that people are talking about with large language models, where are we going to get dumber because we outsource our thinking to these.
This is the same
right?
conversation it's like you're having with me. So you like to explore, but you accept where we've gone before so you can explore versus...
Well,
but would you say you're dumber as a result? Because it's the same
No,
argument.
you're talking
No.
about society in general, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, why I tend to think this way is, let's say I use my phone to listen to audiobooks and listen to podcasts. My phone is essentially, beyond a work tool, a knowledge building or knowledge exploring tool. I was talking to an old friend of mine who is a counselor at a high school in right outside Southeast DC. So let's say lower income area. And he said, oh, I'm trying to get the school to spend more money on computers for everything, or get tablets for the kids so that they can do learning. He said, but one of the biggest challenges I have is nobody uses this for learning. I was like, well, what do they do? It's like porn, fights, cartoons, right? They're like that, pretty much like nobody, because they've never been, but they've never been introduced to the value that this has. And also, if you're maybe, let's say, not rewarded for knowledge, why would you ever go and use a machine to go and get more knowledge, right? So there's a whole like society and socioeconomic situation here. But that to me is interesting because, yes, I'm okay with outsourcing a bunch of stuff because in my mind, maybe I'm wrong about this, I'm using these to get better in things that matter to me, or to gain knowledge, or to gain wisdom in some way. Yeah. And I'm not sure that's what the majority of society does with these things, right? Like, why is everybody having so many problems with Instagram and with Facebook? And why does everybody hate social media, except everybody still uses it and loves it because there's no other choice? And you're like, but use it in the appropriate way. You're just doing that because you're allowing yourself to whether get addicted or get pulled into it. But have a modicum of control. Take it away.
So I tell you what I've started doing, which I'm very embarrassed by, and you'll laugh at me now for this. But
using Facebook Marketplace,
always, that's a necessity. So I'm sure you see adverts for these terrible, terrible games you can download on your phones where they're filled with adverts. And I've realized that they're absolutely perfect for me because if I download them, you play them for like 20 seconds and then it triggers an advert. And you've got to watch an advert, or you've got to do something else to be able to continuously watch an advert. I've realized that when I've got about 3 or 4 terminals on the go working with AI, they don't work quite as quickly as I'd like. I'm sat there waiting other times, and the temptation is to spin up another one and start like 6 things on the go, 8 things on the go, or I can stop at my 3 or 4
and play a 20-second game.
And when the advert triggers, I'm not watching that, and I go back to the terminal, and it's the perfect timing for me to keep in control.
So that's me and TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, you can use these little mini breaks, as you said.
Oh my God, there was a Y Combinator. You will love this. I need to find this article. I think it was Y Combinator had a startup in there that it was a dev environment that had like TikTok embedded in it. So it was like when you hit build or whatever, it's like, but that only takes 30 seconds. Yep, but I'm bored and I'm going to watch something. And it was like this brain rot inside this like creation tool. I got to find it. And everybody was just trashing it. And now you're like, no, this makes a ton of sense. And you're like, there's a market for that.
But YouTube Shorts, which I watch more than TikTok, I don't really do TikTok, but I think it's probably the same thing as TikTok. Those I struggle with because those are addictive. And if I'm not careful, I'll sit there and watch over and over and over again. Whereas when I've got an advert, I'm like, I'm not watching an advert. These things are even worse than the game. And the game is pretty bad. But that's enough to jolt me out. So it's like, is there a model there of that? I don't know.
Yeah. But I think these choices, we're becoming more cognizant of how the machine is working us.
Yeah.
And we're
are we?
Well, I certainly know, but I'm acquiescing.
Allowing yourself to be worked.
Allowing it to happen, but I know how it's working.
Yeah.
Totally, I know. And I'm just happy to continue to swipe this thing, and I'm saying, it's okay. Fine, just sort of...
I can stop anytime I want.
Do it to me.
Okay, so it is called the Chad IDE, the first brain rot IDE. It is on Y Combinator. I can't imagine it went anywhere, but I think it's an interesting concept, and everybody was trashing it. And some people were like, oh, this is quite interesting. Like when COVID hit, did either of you use Clubhouse?
No.
So there are things that people just trash that I
know
love.
this. Yeah.
So Clubhouse was a live audio tool where you could just create an audio room,
Oh
spin it
yes,
up.
I find
Yeah.
I joined it for about 5 seconds,
Yes,
and then I just left it.
You
I
realize there's
fell
other people in
in
it.
love with this. I thought this was genius, right?
I
And then it
remember
just
that.
absolutely died.
It's like
in
a
3 to
chat
6
room
months.
thing,
Yeah,
isn't it? Yeah,
but it was
just a-
audio room, and I was like,
Yeah, you join a room and you see who's there, and you just chatted and you just left. Yeah, yeah.
Sounds awful.
What's so interesting to me is
5 seconds.
how who was it? Chris Dixon, I think, is the person. You can go online and check this out, which is like all new technology or whatever. The next big product arrives looking like a toy. And his whole thing was the Web 3.0 and NFTs and all of this. And everybody was,
Where did they go?
NFT?
Yeah.
What happened?
yeah. So NFTs, everybody crapped all over them, right? Even when they were big, everyone was sort of like, yeah, okay, we're still giving you shit about this. What I have found interesting
Have they just gone now?
No, they're still there. There's
People
a market.
doing
It's
drops.
just yeah. It's just everything's sort of fallen apart.
Yeah.
But what's been interesting to me is how different technologies have found their foothold based on like black swan events that you could have never imagined. So the easy one here, let's pretend outside of China, QR codes. Everybody was like, QR codes are the dumbest thing. COVID hits, QR codes take over, and now they're normalized, right? And I forget, I have another example of this written down, but you have different technology that takes off because of events that occur that push that technology in a certain way of usage, and then it gets normalized. And that to me, I'm going to look it up. That to me is an incredibly interesting view on what allows tech to pick up and what dies. Because if like Twitch, massively popular online streaming, right, for games, Clubhouse just died. And I'm like, but if they had put more money into finding the right hosts and getting the right programs on, right, like Spotify did, and with the whole Joe
this
Rogan
is the
thing.
whole idea of social construction of technology.
Oh,
meaning
sorry, I'm going to give it back to you.
Yeah,
The other example I had written down was how AI, meaning LLMs in this case, but you can use AI a little bit more broadly, made markdown files something that everybody knows now. And
Yes.
you go back 3 years ago and people were like, what's markdown, right?
Yeah.
Like devs knew it. So that to me is incredibly interesting. Now, apologies, I wanted to get that out, but let me send it back to you.
It's exactly it's the same thing, which is society vectors and forces will shove up or down by ignoring, not necessarily down by force, but by just not
Need,
relevant.
usage,
Need,
application.
exactly. Or even some kind of trend or something like that. So how long ago was video conferencing was around, Skype and so on? Many years ago. But not only geeks really knew about Skype and used Skype and that kind of thing. But after COVID, everybody who's anybody uses Zoom. Well, we know. Video conferencing was around for a long time before COVID. After COVID, everybody wanted to do video conferencing.
And so this is why I'm still bullish on the whole metaverse thing. I'm like, I still fundamentally believe in this, and everyone laughs at it. They're like, oh, look at that for, a few seconds. I'm like,
Depends
I
what you
feel
mean
like
by it,
this, all you need is the right application. And we already have a society that is anxious to go outside, wants to control everything. And you're like, introduce the right product into that, and you have the perfect recipe to never leave your house and put me in a pod, and I'm in the Matrix, and I'm happy about it. Right.
Yeah, interesting.
Now you're like, why am I alive? What's my purpose?
Well, exactly. So isn't that touching on the sort of being human kind of thing, where being human is also being with other humans?
Yes,
so
that we are a tribe-based.
So the physicality and proximity with people is actually part of us.
But this is the delta that you see that I think in a bunch of reading that I've done. So 2 great books, Stolen Focus, The Anxious Generation.
Yeah, The Anxious Generation is.
Yep. So Stolen Focus is another one you should read.
Yeah,
And what I want to posit, I don't know, a position. The way that we see the world is just fundamentally different than somebody who, let's say, is 23 or 24 now. And during high school, which is these years that you go into situations that are fundamentally uncomfortable, and you go through those situations knowing that, okay, that didn't end my life. I'm okay. I can get over it. I got laughed at by the girl I asked to prom, right? I tripped and fell down the stairs and everyone laughed at me, and I dropped my food in the lunchroom, right? All these things.
But I'm
If you
okay.
never, huh?
But I'm okay.
Yeah. If you never go through that, then the level of anxiety builds up and builds up and builds up. And then you're presented with all this information online of all these perfect things happening that we all know, or at least the three of us know, are all just theater, essentially. To me, the way that our brains work and view the world, it has to be fundamentally different than somebody who is in their early 20s. And as much as I love to critique on it or rag on it, I'm also trying to be somewhat understanding of how does this person view the world? Because in some cases, I know people that just are so incredibly anxiety riddled that they can barely live. And I'm like what? You don't want to go to the store? You don't want to go out with friends? It's like,
we change as a species. I mean, we evolve over time, and so you look at like my parents, my grandparents, and kids are like 18 today, and there's probably quite a big gulf between them in terms of how they see the world, how they react to the world, how they process it. We see it in the sort of 1 or 2 generations different between us, but when that starts to get big, you wonder, well, like how were people, if you go back 100 years, how has that mental model shifted?
I just okay. So you use the word evolve. Do you mean that?
I don't mean evolve. No.
Yeah, exactly.
develop.
Okay, fine. Because actually, for sure, you stick you and me and Joe in 2,000 years or 10,000 years ago in China or Siberia or something like that. We would be just like those people over there. I don't think there's a fundamental difference.
In what way? Because I think
so. Siberian person 10,000 years ago and me. Same.
In
evolution way.
Evolution, sure. But in terms of how you perceive, how you interact with the world.
That's culture. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, in that case, what's the difference between me and a Siberian? Not a lot, other than where we are developing from our early age.
I'll give you a good example of this. If you go back to, and something that intrigues me and frustrates me, is if you look at sort of fin de siècle, I mean, UK society is probably the one I know better, but the sort of late 1900s mentality there, the level of vocabulary there, and how articulate people were.
But that human being is still able to, as a biological thing, it's still able to get that level of vocabulary that we have right now.
But yes, agree. So the mechanics are there, the physical mechanics are there,
exactly.
but culture, the application of it, and given that we know that brains are malleable, that we form neurons based on how we use them, that's really where I'm going. Is that we actively train our physical capability to act in certain ways, and there is a difference. And if you look at kids, like, say 20-year-old now who, as you say, have anxiety because they've developed ways of thinking and put more weight on certain things, probably because their lives are in the spotlight constantly through social media, whereas people like, I will put us in a big group, say, well, we went out and got drunk when we were 19, there's no one there to record it, so we took bigger risks.
I would go along with that in the sense that because of that neuroplasticity that we have, if you looked at the brain of a Siberian person, the actual brain itself, and to the extent that it's complex, and the brain of somebody now, I'm sure it'll be more complex now, only because of the neuroplasticity would have done more.
More complex is interesting.
Yeah, but as in like more stuff.
Different. Would it be more stuff, or would it be different?
Well, we've got more stuff.
How many words for snow are there in Inuit?
But there's snow, and there is AI kind of stuff, and there's Amazon, and there's internet. We've got more stuff going on in our lives than Siberians did. Yeah. So there'll be more complexity.
Yeah,
but the brain was capable then, as it is now, same. But regardless of capability, did it? Well, ours did, and theirs didn't.
All right, so let me.
Ah.
So one, but
Oh,
then
yeah, go for
so let me extend that further. If you
And
see,
I'm not being Siberianists, by the way.
if you think of us like an engine, then, and so we've got the same engine in our brains that you could
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
take that Siberian person, give them 5 years here, 2 years here, whatever, and their brain would start to
I'm
adapt.
only saying Siberian, by the way, because it's just like a remote place, not
Yes,
because of
yes.
any other reason.
But I'd argue they could probably adapt and with a bit of training.
And
get to
I
the
would
same
agree
point.
with that. Yeah, yeah.
But are we then doing the equivalent of running our brains on high octane fuel constantly all the time, and there is a repercussion that comes from that if we run like that?
I agree. We don't know the answer to that. Yeah, well, we're pushing the
we
rev counter. Is it on red yet? I don't know.
I'm going to say so many things on this. So I'm going to try to make it somewhat short. The conversation we had earlier, are deterministic versus probabilistic, tying it to what you said, which is essentially there is 98% of me as a person that is going to be the same, right? In terms of whatever construct, bones, like you're a person, right? But how you act and think is shaped by the context around you.
Mm-hmm.
And why I like the idea of more probabilistic or things that aren't correct is because the rules change from where you are. So there's hard rules, like in theory, gravity is a hard rule, right? Like rules of physics, and soft rules, right? Like cultural nuance and these types of elements. And the ability to understand the difference between those, like let's say you take the US, the way that I greet people in the US is pretty much always a handshake everywhere. So if I'm a machine learning, I'm probably assuming that a handshake is a hard rule until I get here. And when you meet, like, let's say I meet a woman at work, I don't put out my hand, but now I've had to learn that. So there is this ability to say what I thought was a hard rule might eventually be a soft rule, might eventually change. And that goes back to the sun and the earth thing, right? Like this, the sun going around the earth was a hard rule until somebody learned something new and that context changed. The last thing I'll say is I don't agree on the, we all have the same sort of brain machine. Like at some level, yes. But what I've always appreciated is I'm fairly dyslexic, which is one of the reasons I listen to audiobooks. I don't read. Reading is like physically painful to me. And because of that, the way that I learn and the way that I don't know if it's see the world, but definitely the way that I learn has been fundamentally shaped by that, right? And like, I mean, I'll give you a great example of this. Like now with audiobooks, with some of them, I'll listen at 3x speed. And sometimes I'll tell people that and they're just like, how do you consume that? I'm like, I've built it up over time. But if you talk to blind people, listening at 2 or 3 times speed is actually fairly common because other senses will pick up where some fall off. So that to me, probabilistic exploration, in your face, winner, USA,
It's a good summary.
Take it away.
Sure. I think we're coming towards the end of things, so I'll try not to make it too big. But I think you're right, and I think it comes back to, I think we said it last week, is the whole idea that you've got this big box of Lego in front of you, and how you put it together in individual ways makes not just how you work with AI, but actually works how you work as a person. It's a nice metaphor for how your brain works. But I think we all have a different set of pieces we can put together at the start, and we tend to put them together in common ways based on how we're taught and based on our influences. Those do change over time, so the influences now are different to how they were 20 years ago, but there are some commonalities as well, and we're probably a lot more common than we think, but we perceive the differences much more strongly because they are different, because we take a lot for granted. So I think that's why how we use tools makes us interesting as well, and why we get such evolution, such development of technology, is because we're all playing with things in different ways, and that is to be celebrated. We need to find ways to encourage more play and more putting together in novel ways.
Our differences is what unites us.
Yeah. And
diversity.
It's a great segue to what I was going to say.
Wait, you need to take us home on this one, because we are wrapping up, so you get the last monologue. Take it.
Difference is how we experience the world. It's by seeing the difference between this and this is what tells you about how I see the world. If I see this as bigger than this one, then size is a thing, is a construct. How I experience the world is this bunch and list of constructs that I have in my being. And actually, all we are saying when we say personality of an algorithm or a chatbot, I don't see the difference as being, oh, this one is comical and this one is not. If comicalness is not a thing in my psyche, it's not a construct that I recognize. So experience of the algorithm, whether it is a plotting algorithm or a chatbot algorithm, if I don't see that difference, I'm not going to experience it. And it's not important to me. And that goes back to the levels of engagement, of control. If I don't see the copper as being a thing, then I'm not going to engage with it, and therefore I'm not going to experience it, and therefore I'm not going to ask to control it or divest that control. So it is only in these constructs that I actually am going to be engaging with or not, and therefore experiencing or not.
Very good. I'll tell you one thing. I perceive that your coffee cup is empty, as is mine, and I need to problem solve that right now. So.
All right, so it is time to wrap up. That was, I was writing things down, but I won't go into it. We can take it away next week. But that was such a great way to end this. Thank you. Thank you.